What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about the overall market, some very important things going on the news, what's happening with the economic data, and what's going on with Tesla as we have the Cybertruck launch events coming out for tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a very, very big day. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It's not only benefits me, but it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. Anyways, let's talk about Tesla. Let's talk about the market. Tesla was pushing up very nicely. In my video from yesterday, I told you Tesla was still looking bullish, and we should see this thing get very close to 250 plus or even try to break above that. Then Tesla continued to push up during the pre-market, hitting 250 as expected. And then during the morning, I said that if we end up breaking 250, I could turn more bullish, but we have to hold it. And if we ended up getting a rejection, if we failed below it, then I would turn bearish, right? So we had to be watching it. We got to attempt to break out, but instead we ended up seeing these institutions grabbing liquidity just above 250, and the move ultimately failed. Tesla was trying to break 250 and ended up just, it touched 252. And that's where we have some minor support, minor resistance historically, right? Tesla typically doesn't really reject here, at least historically. Typically it rejects like more around like 255, but instead rejected off 252 since it failed to break that. This was just because they were grabbing some liquidity. And then Tesla ended up breaking below 250. So that was your signal that Tesla was looking weak. When that happened, I released another video intraday. I was talking about some possible bearish signals. And this is when Tesla was in the high 240s. I warned everyone that Tesla could be coming back down to 242. That's exactly where Tesla dropped to right before the market closed. And if anything, that was quite accurate. But the question is, will Tesla continue to sink, or is Tesla going to try to like bounce a little bit, maybe chop around a bit approaching the event before anything else? So I first want to talk about the market. I want to talk about some factors affecting the markets for just a couple of minutes. Then I'm going to be talking more about Tesla because it's very important I go over the overall market since there's so much news that affects Tesla too. So what's going on with the market? Just as a reminder, we had the GDP numbers come out. They were as expected, and the market liked it a bit. But I warned everyone that the market could see a fake pump before we see some downside. If you look at SPY, this thing pumped up to 458, as I was warning you guys. But then I told you all that, look, I'm not giving financial advice, but if we see SPY between 457.5 to 460, I see that as a very, very good short entry for the next couple of weeks. And I ended up shorting SPY at 458. Now, if it pumps a little bit more one more time, hey, I'm going to be continuing to short, not financial advice, but that's what I'm going to be doing. And then I believe that there's going to be some significant downside coming to start off December for the first 2 weeks or so, maybe even a little bit longer. But I think the market's due for a pullback, and that's going to be coming. And I think that Tesla is going to be once again following the trend. For now, Tesla could hold up approaching the Cybertruck event, but once it ends, things could change because of that saying, buy the rumors, sell the news. So, anyways, going back to the data, I just want to mention that the data was decent for today. We had some Fed speakers saying the same things all over again, just about how the Fed has to look at the data and etc. For tomorrow, however, 1 hour before the market opens, we have the PCE data report coming out and also initial jobless claims. We want initial jobless claims to be between, right over here, between 213 and 220,000. This is going to be very important. This could cause some volatility. And then PCE, in my opinion, is also going to be important. This is most likely going to be very close to expectations because the last few CPIs and PCEs have also been aligned with expectations. And this is also going to be for the month of October. October CPI was as expected. I think there's a good chance that PCE is going to follow that trend. So year over year, we want PCE to be between 3.1 to 3% or below that. If it's below that, that's going to be quite decent for the markets. It could cause a small pump, but overall, I still think the market will ultimately see downside starting as soon as Friday. And then on top of that, I just want to mention that for core PCE, that's PCE without food and energy. This is going to be another very important metric from the Fed. We want this to be below or at 3.5%. So 3.5% or less would be bullish for the markets. Above that would be a little bearish. My gut's telling me that this data could cause the market to pop a little bit, but I don't think the move is going to last. I'm still leaning bearish for the next few weeks. Then after all the PCE data comes out an hour before market open, 15 minutes after open at 9:45, we have the Chicago PMI. Then at 11:30 a.m., we have the bill auctions coming out. This could cause some volatility, so we'll just be waiting for that. But for now, let's just focus on PCE and initial jobless claims before market open. Now, for Friday, don't forget, guys, we have the manufacturing numbers, which could cause a big move in the markets, in my opinion. And then we also have Jerome Powell giving a speech at 11 a.m. So Powell's speech on Friday could cause more volatility. Let's not focus on that for now, though. Let's just focus on PCE, like I was saying. For earnings, we just had a couple of them. We just had like Foot Locker and Dollar Tree, which were as expected for the most part. Snow and CRM are just barely coming out. For Thursday, we have TD Bank, Big Lots, and Dell. I'll be listening to what Dell has to say, especially, not to mention the Cybertruck event on Thursday. And then as far as the market goes, we have some bearish indicators that still remain. We have the fear and greed index still at these like very tight levels. We're at greed right now, but the other indicators are at extremes, like the market momentum. If you look at the stock price breadth, this is still at greed, and then the put and call positioning is at extreme greed. Typically when the market is pumping, we see things like that, suggesting that the market's in a topping process and there's likely going to be downside coming. But on top of all of these signals, on top of all these indicators, I'm going to show you guys the charts, which just adds to the evidence. I'm talking about that in just a couple of minutes. Let's talk about Tesla. What's going on with the Cybertruck event? Well, something very strange has happened. So Tesla's announcing that this year it's Cyber Thursday, which is pretty funny. It's going to be tomorrow, the last day of November, and now they're saying at 2 p.m. Central Time. So they used to say 1 p.m. the last time I reported this. Now they're saying 2 p.m. I don't know exactly what the time will be because sometimes they change at the last minute, and sometimes these events are like delayed by like an hour. So between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Central Time is when it should be starting. I'll give you guys an update tomorrow on when the time is going to be before early on, if anything. I don't know exactly what the timing will be. It should be 2 p.m., maybe 3 p.m., one of those two most likely for Central Time. So we'll be watching, we'll be waiting, and if anything, this will cause volatility for Tesla. That's when we have the big event. When it comes to the Cybertruck, as a reminder, guys, this is huge for Tesla, at least for the long term. For the short term, however, uh, you know, I just want to mention that this doesn't guarantee Tesla is going to explode forever. I know this event is awesome. Tesla's run very nicely approaching the event, but never forget the saying, buy the rumors, sell the news. And don't forget to be looking at what the market cycle is doing because that's going to still affect Tesla. So, what do I think of the Cybertruck, guys? I think the Cybertruck's amazing. It's very durable. It's a very unique product. And I think that there's going to be a lot of buyers coming in and many retail investors and buyers are just going to be so excited for the technology and the products. However, the thing about it is, like Elon Musk has said, this is an enormous challenge for Tesla's balance sheets, at least when starting off. And I think that for the short term, we could see some upside. We could see Tesla hold up. We've already seen some upside approaching the big event. This could even continue a bit tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to last. I think that especially going into December, there might be some downside coming to the markets that could slow Tesla down. I think that this could still be a buy the rumors, sell the news event. So you just want to be very careful. Now, Tesla's future is not solely dependent on the Cybertruck because there's so many other products and such. So don't solely just look at the Cybertruck. Don't forget what Tesla stands for, and don't just like solely value it based off that. And with that being said, the UAW is launching a union at Tesla with 12 other automakers possibly getting involved. This is some possibly significant news. I think that this isn't 100% confirmed yet, but they're attempting to just start targeting more and more auto workers, about 150,000 in total. And this may include Tesla as well. So this could be part of why Tesla was selling off. We'll see how this affects them moving forward. But with these, moving forward, this could affect Tesla's productivity and such. So we'll be waiting for that. There's also a lot of talk about the base camp 10 solar and beast mode, different variants through the app for the Tesla Cybertruck. I think that's very cool. I can't wait to see what they announce at the event. It's going to be very interesting, so just wait and see for now. Now, when it comes to Tesla, I just want to call out that Wedbush is saying that Tesla should outperform the market, which is good news for Tesla. And then looking at other indicators, price-price ratio is going up because Tesla outperformed the market a bit, but it's starting to drop a bit since Tesla underperformed a little bit thanks to some bad news. On top of this, when it comes to seasonality, we tend to be green about 47% of the time on Thursdays, not the strongest of days, and we tend to be very volatile around 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time and at 2 p.m. if you're interested in like looking at the most volatile times. Volume is very nice. Last time I checked, it was like around 135 million, well above average. We're getting good volume. We're seeing lots of exposure, lots of excitement. But now the question is, what's going to happen to Tesla, in my opinion? And the answer is, I'm still holding my same view. So right now, we have a bearish divergence on Tesla, and Tesla has attempted to break out. But there is one thing that's going to be very critical for Tesla, and that is where our resistance ended up landing. I ended up discovering this a little bit later, but I just want to show you what this is. I discovered something super, super interesting. If you zoom out of Tesla and go to the 4 hour time frame, you just really, really zoom out, you'll notice that we could just play a game of just connecting the different peaks, and it actually aligns very, very nicely. So you can actually look at this peak here and just connect pretty much everything just like this. And you could see right where this resistance trend line happens to be, we rejected here, right? We rejected the second time, the third time we came very close and rejected. And then just recently we saw Tesla reject. I could redraw this maybe a little lower, but it doesn't really matter at this point. You guys get my point. We saw this tight resistance on Tesla, and there is a risk of a rejection that could be coming. However, However, with the Cybertruck event, it is possible Tesla gets one more pump approaching the event. Maybe we retest the trend line. We need to see this thing hold and close above 250 for me to turn bullish on Tesla again. As long as we don't close above 250, there's a risk of it basically coming back down towards these imbalances, making its way back down to the 230s. What do I think is the most likely possibility? In my opinion, I think there's a chance Tesla could hold up and try to push a little bit approaching the event, but I am concerned because the overall market also affects Tesla. The market popped and dropped just like Tesla, or you could say that Tesla kind of followed the market in a way. And if the market starts selling off very, very soon, like the way I'm anticipating, I don't think Tesla's going to just continue to pump forever. I think that this might lead to some downside for Tesla. I just wanted to warn you about that for December. Okay. We could hold up a bit tomorrow, right? Approaching Cybertruck and all these different things going on. But after that, be very careful. Things could change for Tesla. I just wanted to warn you guys about that. I'm going to go back and just try to bring back these levels on the charts. We're going to go back to the hourly time frame. What could Tesla do? Well, if we get a pop, you're going to be watching 245-ish around there. If we break this, watch 247 as resistance. If we get above that, there's potential for 250. Above 250, we have 252, 255, 257, and 260 as some resistance levels. I don't think it's going to go that high, but there is a possibility it tries to push back towards 247, maybe a little bit higher. It is possible kind of range trades up here for a bit. And then after the Cybertruck event is done with, and it's also going to depend on the data with like PCE and all that coming out. This could cause a pop on Tesla, but then it might end up ultimately rejecting maybe during the event, after the event, or by Friday with Jerome Powell's speech and the manufacturing numbers. So we might see kind of like a pop to the upside and eventually a rejection, and Tesla coming back down to 242. And we might see it just continue to sink lower and come back down towards these imbalances towards like 238 or so. So I think what I'm thinking is it might actually pop and then drop. It might hold up approaching the Cybertruck event and then eventually get a sell off. And I still hold the same view from before. I know it's not what anyone wants to hear. I know it's not what you guys want me to say, but it's my honest opinion, and it's also based off what we're seeing on the charts. Do not forget that Tesla also has this bearish divergence that's developing. If it pushes again, it could still just maintain it, and it's looking a little weaker on the 4 hour. So there could be a little pop coming approaching the event, some sideways price action and a rejection, unfortunately, and there is a risk of downside for Tesla. It's not just because of Tesla, but also the broader markets. If you look at SPY, we have a quadruple bearish divergence. Yesterday, I warned everyone that there could be a fake pump coming, and I'm using the word fake pump in a very colloquial, very unorthodox manner. I'm just doing it to make it as understandable as possible. It's basically a bull trap, right? It pumped up just like this. They grabbed liquidity up here, and they just ended up causing it to drop. If I pull up the chart, you can actually compare this to what we saw in July of this year. We ended up hitting the July high almost exactly. So this rectangle, excuse me, is where our supply zone happens to be. If I go all the way back on the chart, right here to July, you could see that's almost the same level right here, very, very similar level as July, and that's where we ended up rejecting. So very similar trend on SPY. Why do I think SPY could sell off a bit? It has to do with cyclicals, the fact that we pumped so hard with pretty much no pullback, almost no pullback, and because of the fact that our signals are at those extremes on the fear and greed index and such, not to mention the fact that We have this quadruple bearish divergence, and the daily is starting to turn bearish if you actually look at it. So all these different factors are just like confluences telling the same thing. We have this bearish divergence. We have a bearish looking daily candle. We could pop a little bit thanks to the inflationary numbers, but watch resistance. And I still hold my same view. This is not financial advice, but 457.5 to 460 is a very good shorting opportunity in my opinion. And I think that what's going to happen is this. I think within the next 2 to 3 weeks, SPY is going to be coming down to at least 445 to 20 EMA or even below that to fill this first gap. We could even drop a bit lower depending on the catalysts and the news. So I anticipate a little pop and drop or a drop from here. I think that there's going to be a risk of some downside as time goes on. That's my view of SPY, and I hold the same view for the QQQ. If we take a look at the QQQ real quick, right? Same charts essentially, right? We had the same type of setup. So on SPY, they kind of like grabbed liquidity before they started to short it. SPY could pop and drop. I think the same thing about the QQQ basically. If we pull up the QQQ, it's the same thing. This thing broke this high right here. You guys see this high at 393? They broke the high because they're grabbing liquidity. They pushed it a little bit higher, triggered stops, and then smacked it back down. So I'm thinking, this could pop a little bit thanks to the inflationary numbers, but I just see another shorting opportunity. And I think that we're ultimately going to see downside for all the same reasons as SPY and more. We also have the bearish divergences. And then if you look at the daily charts, we have this gap down here at 377 and then 380 is where we have the 20 EMA. We could pop a bit and then drop or just drop from here back down to 380 over the next 2 to 3 weeks. I anticipate some downside on the QQQ and the NASDAQ. This is just a temporary move to the downside, which is going to be a very healthy pullback. I'm still anticipating that. On the IWM, we have a very bearish looking daily candle also on the 4 hour time frame is the same. Could pop a bit, then eventually drop, but I think it's ultimately going to come back down to 175 and maybe fill this gap down to like 170. I think it has some downside as well on the Russell 2000. If we look at Aapl, in my opinion, looks bearish. We're about to get a bearish cross in the daily PPO. And if I pull up the chart, we have a very, very nice looking head and shoulders, I believe. Let me just double check that. If you look at the head and shoulders on Aapl, just like this, you will notice that we basically had a left shoulder here, the head formed, which is where we had this liquidity that was grabbed, and then we have another right shoulder. So they're basically grabbing liquidity, they're shorting up here while people are buying. We might get a little pop on Aapl next to inflationary numbers, but eventually I see a sell-off. I think Apple's going to drop off the head and shoulders, and eventually it's going to be making its way down to I believe 189. Could even break below that and eventually start filling some of these gaps. But I think we're going to be watching it come down to 188 and then 185 for the next couple of weeks. On Nvda, now Nvda, it's been downtrending. It's trying to base right here at 474. It still looks weak though. It's failing to really break out. I was talking about this thing getting a pop and drop today. That's what happened. On Nvidia, I just want to mention that we might see something similar. It could pop off the inflationary numbers temporarily, but then going into December, I think that there could be more downside off of this. We're kind of flagging on Nvidia, if you guys can see this. If we end up losing this trend line right here, this support, I expect this gap to not only fill, but for 474 to be revisited, and then for there to be a bigger move to the downside all the way back down towards 468. So I think that we're kind of like uptrending a little bit, but we're eventually going to see this thing break down. We're kind of forming a flag, and I think that Nvidia is going to make its way down soon, starting at around December. I think the market's going to drag it down. So look for a little pop and drop on Nvidia. That is still a real possibility. So with that being said, guys, I went over the main ones I typically go over. Just as a reminder for Tesla, we could pop a little bit, so make sure you watch the resistance levels I called out, and make sure you watch these support levels I have right over here. We might pop a bit thanks to the Cybertruck event again, trade sideways, but ultimately I think that the market may act as an anchor for Tesla, drag it down, hold on to it and grasp it, and then cause it to just sell off a little bit. And I think that this could even resemble a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event where Tesla sells off. So look for a little pop and drop on Tesla. And we're going to be watching these imbalances down here around 238 or so. So it could pop first, then eventually come down. Just wanted to remind you about that. With that being said, guys, I'm going to now come to the conclusion of this video by just going over a couple of tickers very, very quickly. I'm going to try to be fast just to get as many done as possible. Let me first talk about SoFi, because I was talking about 7.5 on SoFi, then a rejection off the 200 EMA. Instead, it went to just a little bit higher. It went a little bit higher to 7.73, then rejected. But on the daily chart, it looks weak. Looks like it's going to see a rejection and some downside and a move back down to 7.17 with this bearish looking daily candlestick. Could pop a bit and then come down or drop from here. I anticipate that for December. For Microsoft, once again, we have a quadruple bearish divergence, a bearish looking daily candle. I was talking about yesterday 385 being tested in a rejection. That's close to what happened today. We have a quadruple bearish divergence on the chart, and I think that Microsoft could get a back test of this higher level like 380 to 382, then reject, forming a head and shoulders. I think it's ultimately going to come down to at least 375 or below that. Look for a pop and drop or a drop from here. I anticipate some downside for the next few weeks coming. On something else like AMD, we also happen to have a quadruple bearish divergence. We could see this thing pop one more time, but I was talking about how 125 is where we could get a rejection. So far, we rejected. I think it's ultimately, going to come down to 120. So look for a little pop and drop as well. We still have our bearish divergences developing on the chart. So a little pop and drop similar to Nvda is still quite probable. On top of that, I just want to mention that the VIX is looking bullish to me. The VIX is trying to bounce off this 12.45 area. Typically, the VIX tends to bounce between 12 and 13 and push back up to 15. I think it's going to try to uptrend to 13.5 and make its way up to 15. So I'm anticipating upside for the VIX. The SQQQ also happens to have the same pattern developing. Basically, hold on. The SQQQ, right over here, this thing may make an attempt to bounce very, very soon. And we could see something change very, very quickly. On the dollar index, we have a triple bullish divergence developing. I think the dollar is going to break above 103.5 and start pushing up because of the market selling off soon. Coinbase, in my opinion, is also looking quite bearish. On the 4 hour, it's going to retrace towards 121 very soon as well, most likely. Look for a pop and drop or a drop from here. Looking at something else like Google, Google's looking bearish. We have a head and shoulders on Google. Could pop towards 137, then reject to come down to 134 or just sell off from here. I anticipate some downside thanks to the head and shoulders for the next few weeks. So we might pop first depending on PC and then sell off. I think that Amazon happens to have a triple bearish divergence, and we have a head and shoulders just like that of Google. It might pop a bit towards 148, then reject and come back down towards 142. I think it's going to be retracing as well. And finally, for Meta, I'm seeing the same thing developing. We have a head and shoulders like structure. We have this left shoulder here, the head up here, then the right shoulder forming. Might back to 336, then reject and come back down towards 326. So I anticipate some downside for Meta. I think the market's going to get a very healthy pullback for 2 to 3 weeks or so, and I think that this is long overdue. Tesla for tomorrow could pop again. We could see a pop here and there. It could even break out a little bit. But I'm not going to trust that this is going to last forever. I think that this could just be a very temporary move, and we'll see what happens after the Cybertruck event. So I'll update you guys on when the event is starting. It should be at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. Central Time, depending on what's announced. We'll just have to look at the news just to double check. And with that being said, I'll see you guys for tomorrow. I'm excited for the Cybertruck. We'll see how it goes. The market might still pull back soon, starting on Friday, in my opinion. We could get one more pop like how we did today, but in my opinion, there's downside coming for the next few weeks. All right, guys. Sorry if I'm talking kind of fast. I have so much to go over. I'm trying to get as much in here as possible without like not talking way too fast. But anyways, I'm doing the best I can. Thank you for listening. Tesla to the moon, because even with these short-term fluctuations and some possible downside, I'm still a huge bull on Tesla for the long term. And I'm not giving up whatsoever on the company. All right, guys. Have a great night. Have a great evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, and peace out.